Well, I'm glad to be here today. Heather and Tony, I want to thank you for inviting me. Tony isn't able to be here today, but I've been coming to humanist meetings, not for the last 2 years, but before that, kind of regularly. We live in Auburn, so it's kind of a trip over, but we don't come in the wintertime. And I'm glad to be here today to talk about the Central New York National Organization for Women. I'm the current president of the chapter here in Central New York. And today I'm going to talk about the National Organization for Women, the New York State now, a little bit about our Central New York chapter, which includes Onondaga County. And then I'm going to invite you to join the National Organization for Women also. I'm going to start with what is a feminist. This was something I found online. Not many people consider themselves to be feminists, but many say that they're neither, but many people do think that there should be equality between men and women in society. So let's start with a quiz. Do you know who this feminist is? That's right, Geraldine Ferraro. I thought you would recognize her since she was born in New York City. I was here in New York. She was in the United States House of Representatives, and in 1984 was vice presidential candidate for the Democratic ticket. And she was the first female who was ever nominated to be president or vice president of a national party. She was a journalist, an author, and a businesswoman. She used her birth name to honor her mother, who cared for the family after her father's death. She worked on labor and employment law, international affairs, health, transportation, taxation, social welfare issues when she was in Congress. And she once said, "Every time a woman runs, women win." How about this woman? Madeleine Albright, another feminist. She was appointed ambassador to the United Nations. That's a cabinet level office. And she was appointed during the Clinton administration. She was the 64th Secretary of State. And she famously said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. She was criticized for that, but frankly, I like it. How about her? Another New Yorker? Yes. Betty Friedan. She was an American feminist writer and activist. She was a leading figure in the women's movement in the United States. In '63, she wrote the book, The Feminist Mystique, and she's credited with starting the second wave of feminism. She was a co-founder of the National Organization for Women in 1966. I have a bunch of quotes from her. "Aging is not lost youth, but a new stage of opportunity and strength." I'm keeping that in mind. It's easier to live through someone else than it is to become a complete yourself. And man is not the enemy here. He's a fellow victim. You know this woman?
Catherine DeCrow. She was responsible for Title IX legislation.
Karen DeCrow. Yeah. Partially responsible. She was the fourth president of the National Organization for Women. And thank you for knowing her. Those of you, Holly, I think you were at this summer when we went to the Onondaga Historical Association. Heather was there. I know Jim and I were there. Karen DeCrow's photograph was up on the wall at the Historical Association. She was an author, an attorney, activist, and feminist. And she really fought for joint custody in divorce cases for men to have custody of children too. And she described her ultimate goal as a world in which the gender of a baby will have little to no relevance to future pursuits and pleasures, personal, political, economic, social, or professional. How about, oh wait, how did he get in here? Joe Biden, yeah, I put him in too, because in January of 2000, when the Supreme Court assembled to hear oral arguments attacking a pivotal section of the Violence Against Women's Act, Joe Biden was front and center. He was very instrumental in getting the Violence Against Women Act passed, legally protecting women from domestic abuse and gender-based violence. Biden proclaimed that it was the most important legislative accomplishment of his Senate career. He also worked on passage of the Equal Rights Amendment in Congress. And we now have Joe Biden in the White House, something we hadn't had previously, to work on passage of the Equal Rights Amendment. We're constantly reminding him that he made a campaign promise to publish the Equal Rights Amendment. He hasn't done that yet. Joe Biden said, if you're smart, you'd be a feminist. Here's a little quiz now. You might be a feminist in, do you know what year a woman could have credit in her own name? Holly, it said 73? Yeah. Very good, 74. Yeah. In 1958, credit cards were first introduced, and it wasn't until 1974 when the Fair Credit Opportunity Act passed that said that you couldn't use religion, race, national origin, or gender in determining credit. And the first CEO of a major bank was Jane Fraser of Citigroup. What about the second one? What year was the Equal Rights Amendment first proposed? I mentioned that. Jim?
1923.
Yes, by Alice Paul in Seneca Falls. How many of you have been to Seneca Falls? And have you been to First Presbyterian Church? The podium that she spoke from is still there. There's a plaque on the podium. It faced a legal challenge at the Department of Justice when the previous guy was president. He issued a memo stating that Congress could not revive a proposed amendment after the ratification deadline had expired. So we've been almost 100 years since the Equal Rights Amendment that writes women into the Constitution was first proposed. And we're still fighting that battle. The next one, what year could married women first get prescription birth control? Boy, Holly, very good. It was 65.
Oh, okay.
The Supreme,
yeah, surprisingly not that long ago.
I wanted to say something about credit cards. When I was little, on Saturday was shopping day, we would, 3 kids, we'd go with my mom, and my mom would always sign at the store, Mrs. Mike Belosi. And we always were like, Mom, that's not your name. But we didn't know, but it was, she couldn't have credit in her own name. My dad could have credit. Okay, so what year could a married woman first get prescription birth control? 65. That's when the Supreme Court ruled on the Griswold versus Connecticut case. Connecticut law prohibited the use of contraceptives, and it was ruled that that violated a constitutional right to marital privacy. In 1972, Eisenstadt and Baird expanded that right for the possession of contraceptives to unmarried women. Remember when the Supreme Court issued their recent Roe decision? Clarence Thomas said that Griswold was one of the laws that needs to be looked at, that probably was incorrectly decided also. So I no longer need birth control, but some people might. That's okay. And the next question, what is the Declaration of Sentiments? Those of you who went to Seneca Falls?
it's really about putting as a document that was put together to declare women's rights along with everyone else. Was it Stanton?
Yes,
Linda
Linda's saying Stanton, Anthony, and yes,
Anthony. Did Sojourner Truth have anything to do with that?
not that I know of. She might have been one of the signers. The Declaration of Sentiment is a document based on the Declaration of Independence signed by 68 women and 32 men that was read and signed at the 1848 conference. Declaration of Rights or Declarations of Sentiments. And at Declaration Park, it's etched into the stone behind the waterfall. The convention is known as the Seneca Fall Convention. The principal author was Elizabeth Cady Stanton, as Linda said, who modeled it upon the US Declaration of Independence. She was a key organizer of the convention along with Lucretia Coffin Wright and Lucretia Coffin Mott and Martha Coffin Wright. And the last one, who was the first woman to be elected to Congress?
Maine, I believe.
Montana, one of those M states. Yes, very good. I don't know your name.
Dave.
Dave says Maine, but it's Montana. And it was Jeanette Rankin in 1916. And she was the first woman elected to the House of Representatives. She advocated for women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes. Do you notice anything about that date, 1916?
Women couldn't vote yet.
Women couldn't vote yet, but they could in some of the Western states. Again, if you go to Seneca Falls at Generations Bank, they have a sculpture called Passages. There are 3 male figures who signed the Declaration of Sentiments: Max Eastman, James Mott, and Frederick Douglass. And around those statues, those figures, is a banner with the timeline for women's rights to vote. And some of the Western states gave the right to vote to women if they moved there. But Jeanette Rankin was actually born in Montana, but she did have the right to vote and was elected to Congress twice. Okay, well, so you did pretty good on the quiz. So there are some feminists here. I'm now going to kind of shift and talk about the National Organization for Women. There are really the national organization, and that's where our membership resides. And states also are members of that national organization. And then there's a state level, and members and chapters belong to the state organization. And then chapters are those local groups, and that's where your membership can reside. You don't have to be a member of a local chapter, but you must be a member of a state organization. There are 6 core issues.
Yeah, I had a question.
Dave.
Dave.
Okay,
In
Dave.
regards to the credit for women,
Uh-huh.
what was the logic behind that? I don't get it.
The
If you work
logic
there,
behind the credit for women,
Yeah. if you work there,
denying credit.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the logic behind denying rights to women? Power, I don't know. Maybe the thinking that women didn't have their own money, that women couldn't pay any debts that they might accumulate. I don't really
I
know.
would say power.
Yeah, I would
To
say
not-
power.
to-
Yeah,
to go out.
yeah.
Okay.
Keep us in marriage. Free labor. That, okay. I don't really know the logic, Dave.
Okay,
Um,
very-
but by 74, women were in the workforce and did have their own money. So I'm sure that that was a hard fought battle. I don't personally remember it, but I can't imagine. I know, yeah, I used to have my dad co-sign on stuff all the time, but I was very poor then, so maybe that's why.
I used to take fake husbands with me to rent apartments.
Ah,
You know,
Holly
I-
says she would take fake husbands when she would try to rent apartments, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember those days, yeah.
yeah. There are 6 core issues of the National Organization for Women, and these have kind of evolved over time, but they've been pretty stable for a while. First of all, reproductive rights, racial justice, ending violence against women, economic justice, LGBTQIA+ rights, and then of course, constitutional rights, which was the initial core issue for now. In 1967 at the first conference, they passed a resolution to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. So it's a long battle. Little history. The National Organization for Women was started in 1966. I mentioned Betty Friedan as one of the organizing leaders. Betty Friedan and Pauline Murray met to discuss an alternative action strategy during the 3rd conference of the Commission on the Status of Women in DC. And Friedan famously wrote the acronym NOW on a napkin. A couple of highlights. The National Organization for Women is a movement towards true equality for all women. And we want to take action to bring women into full participation in society. So that idea of action, we are an action organization. Today, our mission remains much the same, taking action through intersectional grassroots activism and still equal rights for women and girls. The structure of NOW is a little different than most organizations in that the members of the organization are the highest level. Members are the grassroots, the building blocks of the National Organization for Women. And so being a member of a local chapter is where we take action and make the goals and the core issues part of the local community. The state organization is guided and defined by its members and chapters. The primary action of the state organization is legislative. At the national level, we do have officers. The officers and the staff at the national office are paid. We have an elected president and vice president, and then the National Action Center, the staff are hired. The national office is guided by resolutions. The resolutions are proposed by members. They're developed, written, proposed, and voted on by members at the national conference. And so that's where our action comes from, based on those resolutions. National Organization for Women really has 3 branches. There's National Organization for Women Incorporated, and this is where the membership lies. There's also a foundation. The foundation is involved in education and litigation. They sign on to many amicus briefs and testify at the Supreme Court and other levels of court. They have 4 major areas: a campaign called Love Your Body that deals with body image and health, Ratify Women, which is global feminism focus They work with NGOs and the United Nations on global issues that are related to NOW's core issues. Crisis in Family Court. They have a newsletter about issues related to family court issues, and let's see, I'm missing one. Ratify Women, Global Feminist, voter mobilization. Right now, several organizations, chapters have received grants for Get Out the Vote actions. So they work on voter mobilization. They're also in the National Organization for Women is a political action committee. They endorse candidates at the federal level. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. The NOW PAC only takes money from NOW members. We don't take money from any outside groups or corporations, just from NOW members. I mentioned that the state organizations primarily work on legislation. Current priorities of New York State now are again tied to our 6 core areas. The Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act, which makes accommodations for workers who are pregnant. In New York City, they've set up a program with partners called Be a Friend. And this is to help women, pregnant people who come to New York City seeking abortions, to help them navigate the city and get the services that they need. Cyber flashing. You know what cyber flashing is? Well, I didn't know until a few months ago either. Apparently, people can send random photographs of them nude and other kinds of inappropriate pictures onto your phone anonymously. And I don't know how they get your telephone number, but you get just randomly somebody sending you a nude picture. I was on the last board meeting, somebody from California said that California just passed a law banning cyber flashing. And I know that in New York State, we're working on getting a cyber flashing law passed. The issue about wage and hour protection for home health workers has been something we've been working on for several years. Home health workers are required to work 24-hour days, but are only paid for 13 hours. And this is an issue particularly for now because 93% of the workers in home health identify as women and 70% of them identify as immigrants. They're particularly susceptible to employer abuse. And of course, the Equal Rights Amendment, both in the New York Constitution and the 28th Amendment to the US Constitution. Another, we can't read it with the, well, I don't know how to turn it off. For sex trade workers, this is an area we've been working with Liz Kruger and Pam Hunter. Pam Hunter is assembly member in Syracuse. I don't remember her district, 128 maybe. But this is for sex workers to help them leave sex work, protect them, and help them not be prosecuted. It's based on the equality model. Since the equality model is that people in sex work are not committing a crime. The people that keep them in sex work, the people that hire them, are the criminals in the situation. So that's the short answer. Central New York now, the chapter that I'm the president of, is we're really based in Onondaga, Oswego, Cayuga, Madison, Tompkins, and Cortland County, right here in the center of New York. There are other chapters around the state, now chapters in New York City, surrounding areas. There's a specific chapter in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, Hudson Valley, Long Island, Rochester has their own chapter. New York State has one of the highest membership rates in the nation, and each chapter does their own programming, but there is some coordination in work between chapters. For instance, we coordinate with Rochester on some programming, and we like to talk back and forth about what's going on at the national level and the state level. What did Central New York now do in 2022? We have monthly meetings. We have educational meetings for our members or the public, and rallies and protest that action again. I put our monthly meetings are usually the first Tuesday of the month, and we meet most months, but not all months. We've had this year in April, a program on reproductive rights. In May, we did a program on voting rights. In July, we co-sponsored showing of the documentary Connie Cook. Linda, you know who Connie Cook is?
No.
Oh, well, you were my history expert, my person expert. Linda doesn't know who Connie Cook was. She was a Republican assembly member who helped pass abortion rights in 1970 in New York State. So if we, yes, well, you know, they kind of flipped. You need to see the Connie Cook documentary. We did participate in Juneteenth events in Syracuse, and in July, we participated in an equal rights event in Seneca Falls. In November, we're going to be working on violence against women and with disabilities program. The Canandaigua Treaty, we're going to attend that commemoration. Ending abortion stigma at Ithaca College, we're going to be participating in a program there. And Holly notified us about silent protests in Baldwinsville, and their next one is November 5th, and we're going to attend that. And in November, I will be talking at SUNY Cortland about activism. Under rallies and protest, much of our focus this year has to do with the SCOTUS decision overturning the Roe decision in Dobbs versus the Jackson Women's Health Organization. In May, we were in Seneca Falls when the decision was leaked. And then we also went to Ithaca, again, in response to the leaked document. And then we were in Cortland. In June, Syracuse had a rally when the decision was released. And in July, Auburn had a rally that we attended. The last picture in August, we are endorsers of the Back from the Brink campaign, which is an anti-nuclear war campaign. The Syracuse Peace Council houses that program, and we attended the Hiroshima and Nagasaki anniversary events here. We just completed making calls on behalf of Congresswoman Maloney. She was endorsed by NOWPAC and also New York State Now. You might know that Carolyn Maloney lost her primary bid to Jerry Nadler. We're sorry to lose a woman in Congress and a strong ERA advocate, but we also have endorsed Jerry Nadler. October 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, we had Rematriation Weekend. That focus was on Indigenous women and included educational events, and then a tribute to Joanne Shenandoah in Auburn. And again, in the last two slides, you can see all of our 6 core issues. We do cooperate with like-minded groups. The NAACP in Syracuse, Onondaga County, several of our members belong to that NAACP branch. And some of our officers are officers in the NAACP here in Syracuse, Onondaga. We cooperated with the AAUW in Tompkins County in Rochester. We are part of charter members of the Women March in Seneca Falls, the Syracuse Peace Council I mentioned back from the brink, Ending Abortion Stigma, which is a, I'll say pro-abortion group in Ithaca. And what's the last one? The women's, I don't know what I wrote down there.
Institute for Leadership and Women.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you can read it. Great. Yes, the Will. They're in Seneca Falls, and we do cooperate with them and cooperated with them on the Indigenous women programming that we did the beginning of
What's AAUW?
American Association of University Women. Why am I a now member? I'm not going to go into big details, but because I knew from a very early age that my family, my church, my school, society did not value me as a woman. I knew because my mother had to sign my dad's name. I knew because at school I couldn't do certain things. I couldn't take certain classes because I was a girl. And I knew that society as a whole didn't value me because I could see and hear. Luckily, NOW was started in 1966. I heard about NOW, and as soon as I did, I knew NOW was for me. New person, I don't know your name. Liz. Liz said when she heard a humanist, she knew it was right for her. When I heard about NOW, I knew it was right for me. And I knew that I needed to know the people that were in NOW, and I needed their support. I've been part of various chapters, and I've also been an at-large member, not belonging to a chapter, depending on where I lived. I was on the Missouri State Board, and I am now a delegate to the New York State Board. And I love NOW. I believe in everything that NOW stands for. I brought 2 board members with me today. They came along for the trip, Rochelle Nesselrode and Janet Swinky, and I've asked them to talk about why they're NOW members. Rochelle, you want to go first?
Sure.
Come up here so that you can be recorded and seen.
Hi, and Mickey already told you my name's Rochelle. My story is Mickey and I actually moved to New York State the same month and the same year, and we didn't know each other. I have a background in domestic violence and sexual assault, so of course I'm very interested in women's issues. Worked many years with, I call all women who've are still in the situation or out of the situation, they're all survivors, because living in a situation, those women are wonderful, intelligent. I can't even, to survive every day in that situation, you are a survivor, not a victim. So that's my take on domestic violence. So anyways, Mickey and I met 2017. We went to Washington to the Women's March. And ironically, we had moved up here and all this, and I never heard of NOW. I come from a very rural area in Pennsylvania, and I'm telling you, if you watch the TV shows, they hunt, they fish, and they have their women at home, and they're at the bar Friday night, Saturday. So I never heard of NOW. I wouldn't have in that situation. So Mickey starts talking about this organization. We're on this bus trip. I'm like, I don't know what she's talking about. So, and I was like, wow, there's an organization out there fighting for women. Okay. So of course I I joined, and I've been part of the group for 5 years. And I respect what they're doing. I love what they're doing. When I go home to Pennsylvania, I try to talk about it. Not getting anywhere, but hey, I'll keep talking. Even growing up, my family, when I started working at a center for domestic violence and sexual assault, they didn't even get it. Like, you know how people are about those issues. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, that happened. So then I come up here and join now. Now I think I'm really, but that's all right. I just still keep saying what I think and how things should be. And I was thankful that Mickey got me involved in the organization. Thank you.
Thanks, Rochelle.
Janet?
I'm Janet Schwenke, and I also moved up here in 2017 from the Washington, D.C. area. I was not a member of NOW or anything else before I came up here, because my husband was in the Navy and we moved 11 times in 16 years. And I was always busy reinventing myself every single place we ever lived. But I came up here and found home, which is something I never had before in terms of a physical place. And also in terms of belonging. I met Mickey very early when I got up here. She invited me to come with her to a number of organizations. And when I got to NOW, it was like, these are my people. People who care about the same things I do, people who want to work for the same things I do. And the reason I'm an enthusiastic NOW member is largely a numbers reason. I have 5 children, of whom 3 are daughters, and I have 14 grandchildren, of whom 7 are girls. And it absolutely appalls me that the same things that I worked for 50 years ago are the things we're fighting for now. And I can't stand the thought that my granddaughters are worse off than I was. So I'm always, like Rochelle said, it kind of seems to skip a generation. My daughters are all busy raising their families and doing their careers, but my granddaughters are out there. They go to protests, and one of my granddaughters just absolutely made my year when she told me what she wants for Christmas is one of our sweatshirts that we have back there that says feminism is the radical idea that women are people. And so that gives me hope for the future. But NOW is a great organization. It's a great group of people, and it's a great sense of community for everyone who wants to work to further the cause of women and minorities. Oh, I also have a sister-in-law who is a trans woman. So that's another cause, another motivation I have for wanting to be a part of NOW.
And mention that she'll be our speaker in January.
Yeah, she will. She'll be our speaker in January. And she's going to talk about her experiences, about how we can get involved to help transgender people in general, and about the transition, which I have experienced on the other end, when your family member suddenly tells you at the age of 58 that they are. But I can also say that having gone through this with her, she is a much happier person. And I told her the last time she visited me, I like you much better as a woman than I did as a man. So,
Janet, will you talk about your sash? How did that
Oh, yeah.
come about?
well, I was looking for some of my buttons to wear today, and then I realized, oh, they were all on my sash. When NOW works or participates in a lot of events as an organization, we frequently wear white or purple, and we have our sashes. This one I had custom made for me by a very talented artist named Sandy Shutter, who works in Auburn. and who participates in the Seneca Falls March for Women. And so it is designed, Seneca Falls in the beginning, this is Susan B. Anthony. It goes through, who is this? Oh, Shirley Chisholm, who is one of my personal heroines. My father wrote her in for president, and so she holds a special place in my heart. And this symbolizes Kamala Harris, the pearls in the tennis shoes, that we finally made it to the point where we have a female vice president, but we're still working to get that Equal Rights Amendment passed. So
Maybe next year,
We hope.
2023,
Yep.
100 years, right?
yep, 100 years, that's
Maybe
the
that's what he's
charm.
waiting for.
Well,
So
there's
that's the
still-
story of the sash.
After the election, there's still some time that it could happen.
Yep, and Mickey and I were just in Rochester talking to Chuck Schumer's aide and begging and pleading that he would get,
And demanding.
yeah, the senator to bring it up or kick it out of committee. Right now it's stuck in committee in the Senate. And somebody said, why is it stuck in the committee? And I said, well, think about it. Committee members, Chuck Grassley, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Lindsey Graham. That's why it's stuck in committee, but he can bring it out without it being approved by committee. So anyway, that's why I'm a member of now, and I hope and I strongly encourage any of you who think you might fit into our happy little band, will give us a try and join us.
Thank you, Janet. I have a couple more slides. I will ask you to join now. You don't have to, but I would ask you to join because we always need more workers. You really have to decide why you would become a member. And Dave, it's the National Organization for Women, not of women. We do have some male members. Dues can be paid annually or 3 years at a time, or you can become a lifetime member. I really wonder now why I didn't become a lifetime member a long time ago. The dues are kept low so that we can, so that women we know make less than men, so that we can be accessible to women who don't have a lot of money. The dues cover national, state, and a chapter if you want to be affiliated with a chapter, but you are required to affiliate with a state. And actually, our chapter has paid dues for a couple members. So even if you can't afford, the $10 is the basic membership fee. The full membership for a year is $35. I don't remember what 3 years is. It's like $5 cheaper. We do have some membership forms in the back if you think you're interested, or you can become a member online. And you can connect with us online, attend our meetings, or receive our mailings. Join us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm trying to decide if we need to close our Twitter account. I'm trying to decide that for me personally too. And we have email. I do have this information on little partial sheets on the back table back there. So you
Is there
don't,
an age minimum or like do you have to be 18 to join or any?
no, we don't have any children in our chapter. We have a high school student right now. We have somebody who just graduated from college. We've had like recent college graduates, much like Janet talked about how much she moved. I moved a lot. You know, our younger members tend to be pretty mobile. We had somebody move to Houston. A couple people had, one person had a baby last year, another one had a baby this year. They both dropped out. But yeah, no, there's no minimum age. And you can be as old as you like to stay a member. Especially if you get that lifetime membership. So connect with us online. And I was very glad to be here today. Are there any questions or questions for myself about now, or I don't know, you want to know more about how I've been oppressed in my life? I don't, as a white woman, Janet and Rochelle would be glad to take questions. I mentioned they're both board members. So, and Rochelle is, yeah, she's our corresponding secretary. Are you on the state board too? I can't remember right now.
Yeah, I'm on the state. board.
Okay, she is on the state board too. Okay.
So
Linda.
how are you funded, both nationally and statewide and locally?
The funding comes from dues. When a person pays their membership dues, that money goes to national. And part of that money is kept by the national organization. Part comes back to the state, and then the state distributes part of that membership dues to the local chapters. I won't go into the percentages, but so the funding comes, we're self-funded, but we do get reimbursement from national based on renewals. New members are, do I need to stay up here to be by the microphone?
It would probably work best.
Okay, new members, that money goes directly to national, but then when somebody renews, that's when the state and the chapters get rebates. We get part of that money comes back. But self-funding, we get a couple $100 donation a year. People that know us, they'll send us money.
Well, how many members do you have in the chapter?
In our chapter, we have 121 members. Right now, I've been the president for 4 years, and it keeps kind of fluctuating, 115 to 120. Our membership meetings, since COVID, we're still meeting on Zoom. We get like 15, 18 people at a meeting. That's a pretty high attendance. We have a lot of people who are members who do not interact with the organization. So kind of all of those activities, it's a small group of people who participate, but people still want to be members. They still support the organization, but we would like to have active members. So, Linda?
And so you shared some of the things that you've been working on this past year. So it sounds like legislation is something clearly very important.
Yes.
And I would think much of the legislation has to be national, but is there enough statewide? I mean, Schumer, but to bring it right to the national level. I guess I'm curious about from a statewide level,
The cyber flashing was state level, the home health workers, that's state level. The the New York State ERA, and that pregnancy fairness, that's federal legislation. But yeah, a lot of local legislation or state legislation. We could go to New York State Now's website and they list all the legislation they're working on. Stuff doesn't happen in 1 year, I can tell you that, like the ERA. So
I know I'm a community organizer, so I know how difficult it is, but to mix like local things you can do on a local level, but much of it has to either be state level when we're working on bail reform, etc. And then of course on the national level, because something just can't. Has to be sort of, clearly foundational, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
A lot of our approaches had to change due to COVID. We used to have like lobby days in Albany where we would go and talk to state legislators about various things.
And
So,
partner with
yeah.
Planned Parenthood and
Right.
other organizations when they would have lobby days.
Well, you mentioned earlier about, you know, in New York City about helping people.
Be a
who need
friend
to come
program,
here.
yeah.
Because I thought, oh, I'll go to Planned Parenthood and I'll offer my home as like a safe home for people coming out of state. But now I feel like, could I go to you, or like, is, you know, those are the kinds of things where I
The
feel like,
New York City now is working on that, and that Be a Friend program is specifically in New York City. And it's calling on people in New York City to help people who come to New York City. So that's not a statewide activity. I think, and I'm going to a Planned Parenthood event. I can't remember the exact day, maybe November 9th, but I do know that Planned Parenthood in Buffalo is getting a big influx of people coming there for services. I don't know about the Syracuse office, but you could certainly ask and let them know. You live
I
in
live in
Syracuse.
Syracuse.
Yeah, so you could certainly call. I know right now, I don't know who their community outreach person is, but Michelle Casey is their executive director. Or Linda, you could give me your name, or I could find out, but you could find out if you're a community organizer. So, okay. We do have t-shirts back there. If you want to buy a t-shirt, they're $20, and I have a limited number of sizes. But anyway, okay. Yeah, I heard that.